James Jordan, a family tragedy.
It was hardly 24 hours ago that Michael Jordan's world as we know it was business as usual. Michael in California, where else, playing golf. His mother, Dolores, busy working with the Michael Jordan Foundation. His father, James, traveling on business. Or so we thought. Good evening. A very busy day in the Fox newsroom. We are bringing you the latest on the killing of Michael Jordan's dad, James. The whole country seems to be in shock. Friends, family, fans, all of them mourning his death. Michael is such a popular figure. We somehow share in his victories and in his defeats as well. And certainly now, we all share in his pain. We have crews in North Carolina that'll bring us the latest on this tragedy. But first, here's what we know at this point. James Jordan was found floating in a creek, dead from a single gunshot wound to the chest. Authorities cremated his body because it was so badly decomposed. The family had no idea whatever that any of this had happened. Michael is now in North Carolina with his family to help the police with the investigation. And at this moment, the FBI and other agencies are investigating the murder, looking into all angles, including a possible kidnapping. A mysterious disappearance now becomes a murder investigation, and at this hour there are many more questions than answers. Who could have killed 57-year-old James Jordan, and why? The FBI has been called in and is looking at all the evidence.
Well, we're just going to have to look at what facts are known, what condition the car might have been, what evidence might have been found at the car to indicate that there was an abduction.
James Jordan's body was found in a creek last Wednesday. He was not positively identified until today. His car was found last Wednesday, vandalized and stripped. His family hasn't seen him in 3 weeks. Mr. Jordan's body was identified by dental recordings shipped in this morning.
The body was found sort of in a position where it was half over a log, which is common in a floating case.
Authorities are working hard at this hour, searching for suspects and a motive for the slaying. In North Carolina, investigators are telling us they have their best teams possible on the scene right now. For more on the investigation, we go live to Dane Placco, reporting from Raleigh, North Carolina. Dane?
Walter, because of the fact that the crime scene covers 2 states, as you mentioned, the FBI has been called in to assist in the investigation. In addition, upwards of 30 to 40 police officials from North Carolina and South Carolina are also looking for the murderer. Now, we want to take you step by step through the events of the past 3 weeks. James Jordan was last seen on July 22nd as he attended the funeral of a family friend near Wilmington, North Carolina. After the funeral, Jordan visited a friend, told her he would be heading to Charlotte, then drove away in this red Lexus. And that's the last anybody saw of James Jordan. His car was discovered stripped down, buried in the woods near Fayetteville, North Carolina on August 5th. At the same time, investigators in Bennetville, South Carolina, were trying to determine the identity of a body found floating in a rural creek just a few days earlier.
The body was found floating by a fisherman in a creek that, as I understand it, the creek borders North Carolina and South Carolina, and of course Bennettsville is right on the South Carolina line.
Nobody put 2 and 2 together until yesterday, when news of the elder Jordan's disappearance prompted the coroner in South Carolina to compare Jordan's dental records to that of the bodies. Police say Jordan died of a single gunshot wound to the chest from a .38 caliber weapon. It appears the murder took place away from the car because there's no sign of a struggle or blood in the vehicle. And a coroner's report says it's probable James Jordan died around the time of his disappearance. As for right now, they say they have no motive, no suspects, and very few leads. Now, we've just been told that the body of James Jordan has been cremated. In fact, that apparently happened several days ago. Why did they cremate the body in such a sensitive investigation? Well, apparently the coroner didn't know that it was James Jordan. At the time, it was just a John Doe investigation. Although the murder was involved, they knew that he had been shot to death. However, the police I talked to tonight say, Walter, they don't believe the fact that they cremated the body will hamper their investigation at all. They say that they were able to collect all the evidence and take the prints and do what they need to do in a routine murder investigation before the body was cremated. Back to you.
Dane, you say that, of course, there is no official word yet on the cause or even on motives, but when you talk around among the police there, do you get a feeling that some of them at least may be thinking that perhaps there was a kidnapping situation for ransom here?
Kidnapping, the only person that's floated the idea so far, the only agency, I should say, that's floated the idea of kidnapping so far is the FBI. They're looking into it as a possible kidnapping case. However, when I talked to the Fayetteville police earlier today, they told me that they had not looked into the possibility of kidnapping. They're just treating it as a homicide investigation at this point.
Okay, thank you very much, Dane, and you will stay there, I presume, until our broadcast night at 9 o'clock when we'll get back to you for an update. The Jordan legacy is rooted deeply in the state of North Carolina. That's where Michael learned to play basketball. It's also where the family has had homes now for several decades. David Rose is live in Charlotte, North Carolina, with more on that. David?
That's right, Walter. We got here early this afternoon, and when we arrived, there were people here, but not as many as you might have expected. It has been a slow trickle here at the Jordan family house. It is a rather large house. There is plenty of farmland. Mrs. Jordan, we have not seen her today. She is an equestrian, has been seen by neighbors riding her horses many times. Now, earlier today, Michael did arrive. He flew in on a private jet. He was escorted by 2 carloads of FBI agents who moved quickly. They sped by us. The gate was opened immediately. None of the family has come out and talked to the media. They are understandably upset. The FBI agents helped Michael unload his luggage. Michael going by, grim look on his face, not even facing reporters at all, looking straight ahead. Michael went inside wearing a black and white jumpsuit with a white baseball cap on. Now, when the FBI agents came out, they would not tell us what Michael had to say on the trip from the airport, but they did say the family is cooperating.
Well, really, I'm not at liberty to discuss that. We're just trying to develop as much information that and helping the family recall the circumstances. And right now, it's a trying time for them, so we're trying to be as patient as we possibly can and try to get on with that investigation.
We have used the word shock with this story quite a bit. That is the story we are hearing here in Charlotte. We are about 15 to 18 miles just west of Charlotte. It is a very rural area here, very much a farmland area. Surprisingly, though, even though it's rural and you would think that here in the South people would know each other rather well and know their neighbors, the neighbors here say that they were stunned by this and didn't know the Jordans well at all. What was your first reaction when you heard about the tragedy?
Unbelievable. I couldn't believe it yesterday. I was sitting at home watching the news, and it was just like a shock, you know. And then today at work, when I heard the shocking news, I couldn't believe it. I went up and told everyone at work about it. And then I said, that's right there at my house. So I got to go through there, you know, and just see.
She is just one of the sightseers who have come by. Really, the traffic has not been what you might expect. This is an area that is not anywhere near town. As I said, it's 15 miles to the east of town, not easy to get to. We talked to other neighbors, and they gave us an indication that they saw Mrs. Jordan a lot, but like many other people, they didn't see James Jordan very much. As I said, Michael is inside. We wish the best for the family. We can imagine that though it is quiet out here in the countryside, it is probably a very emotional evening inside. Walter?
David, that's my interest, the quietude of the countryside, family and friends there. Have they been speculating about all this? Is it common feeling, if not knowledge around there, that the celebrity of Michael Jordan may be the kind of thing that would provoke some crazy person to do it? Or are they suggesting kidnapping for money? I know they don't know, but what kind of feeling are you getting, if any, are you getting?
Walter, really, the neighbors here didn't have much of an opinion on that. They seemed a bit distracted by all of the media here. They were more interested in finding out, in fact, why Mr. Jordan was murdered. We asked the FBI agents if they thought that any of the gambling accusations associated with Michael Jordan had anything to do with the death, and the FBI agents said that they didn't feel it was proper to comment on that. They are investigating this case, the FBI, that is, because they say that they believe it was a kidnapping. He was kidnapped from North Carolina, taken to South Carolina, and there shot. And that's why the FBI is involved, because of the interstate travel there.
Get it. Okay, thank you very much, David Rose. Now, we don't, of course, know who killed James Jordan. It's been the point of most of these stories, or any reason why. But we know something about the man who was father to perhaps the best player ever in the game of basketball.
That's why we use the tongue.
James Jordan was born a sharecropper's son. He worked as a mechanic and a forklift operator in North Carolina, which is where he was born. He spent 17 years at General Electric, working ultimately there as a supervisor. James Jordan was Michael's biggest fan, cheering him through high school to Michael's days at the University of North Carolina, and then, of course, on to the Chicago Bulls. The father often accompanied the son on road trips and was Michael's greatest defender during the recent uproar over stories about his gambling.
He would not want to do anything, you know, knowingly that would taunt his image or change the opinion that people have of him. But what people must realize is that he's just like every other guy that walks the street, you know. I think there was only one perfect person that I've ever been taught about, and that was God. Mike is not God, he's human.
Michael's father was an independent sort of man, known to travel on his own for several days at a time, maintaining different businesses the family is involved in. So it wasn't considered all that unusual when he didn't show up after attending a friend's funeral in Burgaw, North Carolina. What was unusual was to find a Lexus in those parts, and when authorities found a stripped-down red Lexus 300, they started the search that eventually brought the fact that he was missing to light. Not only a search, but a continuing tailspin of events. The car was linked to James Jordan, confirmed he had been missing thereafter, and a John Doe body that had been found in South Carolina was ultimately identified as James Jordan. Our coverage of the life and the death of James Jordan continues in just a moment. We'll have reaction from members of the Bulls organization who consider James as a member of the team. The fans are telling us they're in shock and don't know what to do with their grief. We'll hear from them. And from local and national figures reacting with some outrage. And as you might expect, a renewed call for gun control. Stay with us for our continued special coverage. Clearly, strong feelings of disbelief and sympathy and anger swept through the Berto Center today. Many of the Bulls players knew and loved Mr. Jordan and considered him to be one of the guys. Kenny McReynolds joins us live from the Berto Center with more on what James Jordan meant to the players and to the managers of the team as well.
Walter, you know, it's been a long, eerie, day here at the Berto Center in Deerfield, the Bulls practice facility. A lot of fans came around, but the last time we were here, remember in June, right after the victory celebration down in Grant Park, there were a lot of smiles. Everybody was happy, but believe me, there was no reason to smile here today.
Thanks so hard.
One by one, members of the Bulls family filed into the Berto Center mourning the death of James Jordan.
I think I remember a lot about James smiling a lot. He was a smiler and a hugger.
He had an ongoing relationship with everybody. I mean, since I've been here, I was never really close with him, but, he never really hesitated to talk to anybody or, the media or anybody outside of basketball or anybody inside the program. He was the type of person that you would think would never make any enemies.
Just a great person to be around, and it was, always had, something to say that was very funny, and he always made us laugh. And he's just a great individual. Everyone just cared for him so much. He was like he's just one of the guys.
Michael Jordan is known as the world's best basketball player, but he was driven by his dad, his best friend. How will his dad's death affect Michael on the court, or will he continue to play?
My father's still living, but, I really don't know. But Michael being the person he is, my gut opinion of it, that he would step forward and, be himself. I mean, the best way he can.
James Jordan was just like, as these guys said, one of the guys. He was here at the Berto Center every day for practice. He traveled with the basketball team, Walter. That's something I've never seen, a father always go on the road with his son, but James Jordan was just like the 13th man on the Chicago Bulls basketball team, and this really has been a very emotional, eerie, and sad day here at the Berto Center in Deerfield.
Kenny, do you know Michael Jordan spoken to any of his teammates? And if he has, whether they know if he's holding up pretty well under these conditions?
Well, I don't think he's talked to any of his teammates as of yet, but I do know that he spoke with his personal trainer, and he also talked with his chauffeur, George. George is saying Michael isn't doing too well.
Thank you very much, Kenny Reynolds. Stay there. We will be back to you again if we hear of anything more, and you'll help us out again on our news tonight at 9 o'clock. Earlier in this day, the Bulls chairman, Jerry Reinsdorf, commented on the news of James Jordan's death. Reinsdorf says he is shocked and saddened, and that James Jordan was a friend to the entire Bull organization and considered part of the Bulls family. It's hard to imagine a conversation anywhere in Chicago tonight that won't include a mention of James Jordan's murder. Everyone seems to be a fan, and every fan, of course, has his or her feelings. We will hear from some of your feelings when we come back. Stay with us, please.
People search for ways to express
As you might expect, we certainly expected it here. It didn't take long for Bulls fans everywhere to respond to the death of Mr. Jordan with shock and dismay and a good deal of genuine sympathy, all felt for Michael now, a man who has brought so much joy to our city. Daryl Denard's covering fan reaction for us and is live at the Score right now. That's All Sports Radio. Daryl?
Walter, what we could tell you is that when a friend of yours hurt, you also hurt. And tonight there are countless numbers of Michael Jordan fans and friends that are searching, in a sense, even groping for ways to express their sympathy. And what many of them do is that they take their talk of sympathy to the radio waves, like many of the callers here at the Score Sports Radio station.
When you have the universal appeal of Michael Jordan and tragedy strikes very close to home, people search for ways to express sympathies and motives.
My son loves Michael Jordan and has a lot of his cards, and I think he's a good role model for the kids, and I just feel sorry for him. Anybody's family that finds out that their father was shot.
I was being optimistic that he'll be okay. They say he changed his cars and all of that stuff. I said he'll be okay for the sake of, Mike and his family. But when I heard that, it kind of touched me just like a family member.
We thought about foul play anyway.
Why?
Well, he's a famous star, and everybody, look at him as an image, and they figure they can probably make money off his father because they know how close they was.
Fans flock to places like Michael Jordan's restaurant, which is closed because of the untimely death of his father, James Jordan.
Condolences to the Jordan family, and in light of that, we would like to close the restaurant today, and we will be closing in respect for the family.
The fans also flood calls to talk radio stations like the Score Sports Radio station here in Chicago.
We are the Monsters of Midday at 10:54. The big story of the day, of course, the death of James Jordan.
As the calls continue to come in, a good number of them will be about the death of Michael Jordan's father.
I had a brief opportunity to meet with Mr. James Jordan, and it was only about 5 minutes, but I'll tell you what, guys, that was one class guy.
I will say this, Kevin, I was talking to Dan about this all day. I've never seen a father look so much like his son.
Indeed, they were a remarkable pair. They did commercials together. They were extremely close. I know that this is little consolation to Michael Jordan and his family right now, but based on all the people that I've talked to and the callers that I've listened to, the man was truly loved, and I'm sure that this not only exists here in Chicago, but probably the world over. Walter.
Daryl, a lot of calls that we've received here while you've been out there most of the day have been asking why it happened that the Jordan family seemed to wait so long to begin to inquire. The father, James, was not heard from since July 22nd. That's 3 weeks. Did you find there people calling on the radio asking that same question?
Matter of fact, many people called, and what it led to was a great deal of speculation, and I guess it also tended to support, though unsubstantiated, a kidnapping theory, because they figured that if the kidnapping had took place in the earlier part of his disappearance, that there would have to be at least a 2 or 3 week delay before he was either handed over alive or the body was later discovered, as we did find out with the news that the body was found floating in a small creek in South Carolina.
Good. Okay, thank you, Daryl Denard from The Score. Reaction coming in now from everywhere, as you can imagine, all walks of life, including, of course, national and local politicians. Daryl talked to Mayor Daley today about the tragedy.
I would like to extend my condolences to Michael Jordan and his family and send my prayers to his family on behalf of this tragedy that has directly affected his family. Very sad.
Mayor happened to be in our newsroom today to appear on Good Day Chicago to discuss his administration in City Hall. He was here when we all first heard of the tragedy in Carolina. On the south side of Operation Push, The Reverend Jesse Jackson offered his condolences to the Jordan family today, also a warning about violence in the American culture.
The violent deaths of well-known people tend to illuminate the crisis of violence that plagues the entire society. The use of violence to rob and to resolve conflict has been glorified in the media. It's now become an everyday facet of our culture.
Reverend Jackson is in Chicago for a meeting of Operation Push. Many of you may want to express your grief and sympathy to the family, so the Jordans have told us you may send your condolences, well wishes to what it calls Jump Incorporated. That's 676 North Michigan Avenue, Suite 2930, Chicago, Illinois 60611. Stay with us, please. I'll be back in a moment to tie together all these days' events relating to the death of James Jordan. Be sure to join us tonight on Fox News Chicago for the latest on this developing story. We will be bringing you live reports on the investigation being conducted in Raleigh, North Carolina, and David Rose will have a report on reaction from the Jordan family from the home in Charlotte. Good night.